This is a map of Wales, the kind of Wales I want to tell you about. Some of the oldest stories of strange magic, giants, witches, dragons, all these kinds of things, strange creatures. And the most famous legend, as we know, is King Arthur. And there are many stories about King Arthur, many different versions. So we have maybe the old version, English version, French version, Disney version, Hollywood version, Japanese version. Do you know this one? It's an anime from the 1970s. So many versions. There's no one correct, definitive version. But there are many common elements. So now I will tell you two popular stories with these common elements, these famous parts together. So, King Arthur and the sword in the stone. A long time ago, Britain was in great danger and trouble. The kingdoms fought against each other and were invaded by people from outside. There was a wise man called Merlin, and he had a dream, a vision. He saw two dragons fighting underneath the earth. One red dragon represented the people of Britain, and the white dragon represented the Saxons, invaders from the east. And he saw that one day, here is Merlin with his magic sword. Merlin saw that one day Britain would need a king to lead it and save it from the invaders. And that king would be called Arthur. Merlin decided that he must make this happen. He must make sure the king comes at the right time. So, at that time, there was a king in Cumbria called Uther Pendragon. Uther Pendragon was a greedy man, and he wanted the wife of the king of Cornwall, a woman called Igraine. He wanted the king of Cornwall's wife, and he asked Merlin to help him. So Merlin disguised Uther Pendragon to look like the king of Cornwall, and Uther Pendragon went into the castle of Cornwall and slept with Igraine. And in the course of time, Igraine had a baby, a son, and Merlin took the baby and named him Arthur. Here, you can see the characters. King Arthur. Remember this. So, Merlin took the baby and named him Arthur, and he gave him to another family. That family had another son, Kay, and Arthur and Kay grew up together as brothers. And Kay taught Arthur how to use a sword, how to fight, how to be a good man. And Merlin secretly taught Arthur how to lead, how to be a king. And in time, they grew up together. Meanwhile, Uther Pendragon, the king of Cumbria, had no more children, no one to take his place as king. So instead, he asked Merlin to help him. Merlin cast a spell on his sword, some magic, and Uther put it into a stone so that only the true king of Britain could take the sword and become the new king. Now, over the years, many people tried to take the sword and become the new king, but no one could take it. And so there it stayed for many years. This sword was called Excalibur, a magic sword. Now, over time, Arthur grew up from a baby to a young man. And one day, there was a tournament in Cumbria, in the centre of Britain, a big competition. All the famous and noble people came from all over Britain to fight each other and prove their worth. Of course, Kay is now a man, Arthur's older brother Kay. He wants to fight, but he doesn't have a sword. So he goes to Excalibur, the magic sword in the stone, and he tries to pull it out, but of course, he can't. And Arthur, the younger brother, always wants to do what the older brother does, always wants to copy his brother. So he goes and he tries, the young boy, he tries to pull the stone. Away the sword comes in his hand, the young boy with the magic sword. And everybody stops. Everybody is quiet. Everybody is watching this boy with the magic sword, the new king. Kay, his brother, is the first to kneel before his new king. And one by one, all the great men and women of Britain kneel before this young boy, and he becomes the king. There they are, all shocked and amazed. So, the young boy Arthur was crowned King of Britain, and his first act was to gather all the armies, all the men of Britain together as one group to fight away the Saxons, the white dragon from the east. And Britain was safe again. And he became the new king. That's our first story this evening. There is another version, another story of how Arthur got Excalibur. In this version, the sorcerer Merlin had a friend, a woman called the Lady of the Lake. Nimue was her name. And she was a magic woman who lived in a castle under the water, a great lake. And she gave Arthur this sword. She said, "This is a magic sword. Its name is Excalibur. And when you hold it up, it will shine with the light of truth, and it will blind your enemies so that you may defeat them. But," she told him, "it is yours. Only you can use it, and you must bring it back before you die." Arthur must bring back the sword before he dies. So, although no one except for Merlin knew it, Uther Pendragon was King Arthur's real father, with Igraine, the wife of the King of Cornwall. But Igraine also had another child with her husband, a daughter whose name was Morgana, and she was King Arthur's half-sister by blood. Now, soon after King Arthur was crowned as king, Igraine tricked him into sleeping with Morgana, his half-sister. He was tricked, and in time, Morgana gave birth to a son. The son was called Mordred, and he was King Arthur's only son, his only heir to the throne of Britain. Now, under the guidance of Merlin, the new King Arthur went about uniting all the knights of Britain together under his leadership, and he created a court, a castle called Camelot, a great fortress. In the middle of that fortress, Camelot, was a round table where all the knights of Britain met with King Arthur to make plans. And this table became a symbol of King Arthur's leadership. His rules, his code of honor: defend your country, defend the weak, do not fight each other, and always be faithful, be true, be honest to God, to your king, and to yourself. So, with these rules and at this round table, Arthur and his knights became famous through all the land as the noblest and most honourable men throughout the world. And there are many stories of their adventures, Arthur and his noble knights. They rescue maidens in trouble, they meet knights from strange lands, they do battle with evil monsters, they defend their kingdom, they defend the poor, the weak, and the needy, and they search for sacred treasures like the Holy Grail. Do you know the Holy Grail? Magic cup of Jesus Christ. They search for the cup. Now the greatest of Arthur's knights was a man named Lancelot. Lancelot was a brave man, honest and true, and he was loyal to King Arthur. They were like brothers, so close as friends. They were like brothers. And in time, Arthur took a wife. He married Guinevere from a Roman family. And all the people of Britain with this marriage became under King Arthur's leadership, under his rule. And there was a long period of peace and happiness in Britain. However, the people prayed that Guinevere would have a child with King Arthur, a son, to take the crown after him. But they did not have children. It was a political marriage. There was no love between them. When Lancelot and Guinevere, King Arthur's wife, when they saw each other, there was a spark. They loved each other straight away. But Guinevere was married to King Arthur. They had to keep it a secret. But eventually, Guinevere had a child, a son named Galahad, and they had to keep him a secret. He was sent away to be raised by monks in the church, and when he became a man, he was brought to the round table and he became a knight. Sir Galahad was then the most loyal of King Arthur's knights. In the meantime, Morgana raised her son, Mordred, to hate King Arthur. Morgana believed that as King Arthur's son, Mordred should be king. He should have the throne of Britain. And she told him that he would have to fight his father for the throne of Britain. When Morgana and Mordred found out about Lancelot and Guinevere's affair, they found out about Galahad, they used this information to split the round table, and the knights began to fight each other. They took sides between Lancelot and King Arthur, and they fought. And at this time, while everybody was fighting, Mordred took the throne and the crown of Britain. Mordred became the king, and all of Britain fell into chaos, madness, fighting. When they saw this, Lancelot and King Arthur realized they had been tricked. They knew they had to take back the throne of Britain, and they had Excalibur to do it for them. They took all the knights of the round table together to fight against Mordred, and there was a great battle on the fields of Camlan. Arthur fought his son Mordred, whom he did not know, as his son, and he killed him. Arthur used the magic sword Excalibur to kill his son, but also Mordred wounded his father. Such a blow that King Arthur would die as well. Also, as he was dying, Galahad, son of Guinevere and Lancelot, took Arthur back to the lake to return Excalibur, his sword. And Galahad took the sword and threw it into the lake. And out in the lake, a hand came from the water and caught the sword and took it away. And then, through the mist, there came a boat with 3 women aboard it. One, Nimue, the lady of the lake. And they took Arthur onto the boat while he was dying, and away he went, over the lake, onto the water, into the mist. So some people say that King Arthur did not die. He is there on a magical island, under the water, sleeping, waiting for the day when Britain needs him again. He will awake, he will come back and lead us to glory and freedom and safety again. Somewhere in Britain there is a gravestone. On it written, "Here lies Arthur, the once and future King of Britain." Thank you. So, these stories are known and loved across Europe and across the world. They are very famous. But they are made up of many different elements.
Yes, one question.
Yeah, please.
Is there any reason that the King Arthur used a round table, not a square table, to have a meeting with knights?
The reason I was told when I was very young is because he was an honest man and he wanted to be fair to everybody. He wanted everybody at the table to have an equal voice. And now, in Wales, there is a government and the table is round. In London, it's one side and the other side fighting. In Wales, it's round. Everybody is equal. Yeah, we will talk more about that later. So, for now, we are talking about stories that were written 500 to 1,000 years ago. And mostly, they were not written in Britain. They were written in France. Most of the stories you just heard are from France. But the origins, King Arthur himself, the character, is much, much older. He does come from Britain. He comes from the Britons from 2,000 years ago.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
The story of King Arthur is mainly told among the Celtic people in Wales and Cornwall and France, and there is a peninsula in France, small Britain or Bhutan.
Ah, that's right.
And so I thought the story comes from the Celtic people.
That's right.
They used to live before the Saxons and some other people came from Germany or somewhere.
That's right. So, now I will tell you a bit of history to explain how the story changed over time. From the Celts, the Saxons, the French, the Cornwall and Brittany as well, and the Romans too. All of them had an influence on the story of King Arthur. And it's changed many times over the centuries.
And I thought, I didn't know why the flag of Wales is quite different from other flags.
Yes.
That is not the national flag at present, but perhaps the dragon is drawn in the flag of Wales.
That's right.
So that is related with the story of King Arthur.
A little bit. The dragon on the flag comes from a prince called Cadwallader, who lived 1,400 years ago, maybe a little later. And he fought, like King Arthur, he fought against the Saxons coming from Germany, and the English later. So first it was his symbol, and later it was used by other Welsh princes fighting against the English. So it became a symbol of Welsh freedom, like King Arthur. So we will learn more about this.